How's it going, guys? It is Galik here from theevidentries.com. Finally back with more long-awaited Shadows Before Dawn continuation. Going to be doing tool number 25 today. If you missed out on tool number 24, if you haven't checked that one out yet, just go back a video. That one is the danger of shoulds. That was the last one that I did, so make sure you catch up on that one if you haven't heard it yet. We're going to be jumping into tool number 25 today. This is a pretty long one, so I think probably afterwards I probably won't do a recap, but we'll see how intriguing this one is. So yeah, this is tool number 25, facing down the 8 faces of self-sabotage. And you know what, I'm going to make sure my audio doesn't pop this time. I'll try my best, because it does tend to do that. Okay. Just can't be too close. First section, kick self-sabotage to the curb. Not loving ourselves is a malace that creeps its way into our lives and causes us to sabotage ourselves. Self-sabotage is the direct result of feeling as if you are not a worthwhile person. In our own private internal dialogues, we don't tell ourselves what is beautiful, good, and right about ourselves. Instead, we tell ourselves what is ugly, bad, and wrong with us. We can't live happy, successful lives this way. You can fit the many forms of self-sabotage into 8 categories: self-criticism, self-doubt, self-blame, self-destruction, self-pity, self-deprivation, self-deprecation, and self-pride. I will speak to each of these in this chapter because I feel they are so important for you to learn to recognize and overcome. Let me start with the most common one, self-criticism. Next section, soothe self-criticism. Self-criticism is when you think badly or speak badly about yourself, and for those of us who do it, it could turn into an art form of picking on oneself. Fortunately, I have a creative way to kick this destructive habit to the curb. Here's how. Get to know your inner critic and create separation between you and it. Give your critic an identity, and an image and a character description. Maybe even give it a name. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What is its intention, and why does it have this intention? Once you have identified the character and message of your inner critic, separate yourself from it as if you are one person and the critical voice within you is another person. Remind yourself that this is just a critical voice in your head. When you recognize that it isn't you, it will be easier to distance yourself from it and not to take it personally when it criticizes you. But don't start to develop a fear of this critical identity. It's not a real separate identity with a will of its own or any kind of enemy that lives within. It's only a mental symbol you are creating and using in order to separate yourself from negative thought patterns. Don't resist your inner critic, because you know that whatever we resist will persist. Resisting your inner critic will only strengthen it. When the inner critic comes up, mentally say hello to it, but don't take it seriously. Let it share what it wants to share, and then mentally say, thank you for sharing. When you're done interacting with your inner critic, turn around the energy by listing 10 things you approve of about yourself, or 10 positive aspects about yourself. Another good technique you may want to use is to commit to thinking 2 positives for every 1 negative. When you hear your mind make a negative statement about you or anything else, commit to finding 2 positive statements about yourself or the other thing that was being criticized. For example, if I hear myself mentally say, I hate how many wrinkles I have, I'd then say something like, I love the color of my eyes, and I love that I'm such a deep thinker. Remember that even though the inner critic can feel bigger than you, it isn't. That is just an illusion. It is a tiny fraction of the being that you are. Next section, chip away at self-doubt. Doubt is just another kind of faith. It's faith in negative outcomes. You can think of self-doubt as self-hate, preventing you from getting anywhere. It is the epitome of the belief, I'm not good enough. If you struggle with self-doubt, bring it into the light by admitting to it. Recognize and acknowledge its existence. If you try to ignore or deny your self-doubt, it will operate covertly by imposing limits on your ability to act. Instead, spend some time trying to figure out what triggered the self-doubt and why. Can you trace it back to any early experiences? Ask yourself, what am I so afraid of? Then plan out a step-by-step strategy for transcending your doubt. Think about what small, manageable steps you could take to feel more confident, and take the first step. When you're done, work on the next step, and so on. Another tool that is great to use for self-doubt is reversal. When you come up with a statement like, I'm not pretty enough, reverse it to say, I am pretty enough. And think of at least 10 ways that the new statement is as true or as truer than the original statement. This technique requires some creative thinking. Consider it a mind game. I find that it helps to pretend that you are a defense attorney in a courtroom and that your job depends on you searching for and presenting evidence that proves that the reverse statement is true. When you find yourself struggling with self-doubt, remember that it's not a giant monster preventing you from succeeding. It's just a speed bump you've encountered on your way to inevitable success. Nothing is impossible in a universe that is made up of infinite possibilities. Next section. Don't accept self-blame. Self-blame is the attitude that whatever has gone on is entirely your fault. When you engage in this form of self-sabotage, you take more responsibility than is actually yours. You take responsibility not only for your part in a situation, but also for other people's parts. If you struggle with self-blame, realize that mistakes happen every day to everyone. It is a crucial part of learning, just like falling is a crucial part of learning to walk. If we all blame ourselves all the time instead of moving on, we would not live in a better world. We would live in a very sad and dysfunctional world. Since a mistake has already happened, there is nothing you can do to change it. No amount of blame is going to change that. Ask yourself honestly, what good is this doing? Then choose to make any amends that would cause you to feel better, such as saying you are sorry and forgiving yourself. You can learn from the mistake and choose to live your life differently, but blame accomplishes nothing. Self-blame is only more self-punishment and self-abuse. Therefore, use any technique to move forward and make you feel better about yourself. People who blame themselves also struggle with self-criticism, so try out the technique I have suggested above for separating yourself from your inner critic. Next section. Watch out for self-destruction. Self-destruction is self-hate in proactive action. It perhaps is the most physical of all forms of self-sabotage. When we are self-destructive, we put ourselves smack dab in the middle of circumstances whose outcomes are the exact opposite of what we actually need and want. If you struggle with self-destruction, identify how you are abusing or undermining yourself. We have to admit that what we are doing is destructive to us if we ever hope to change. We also have to want to change, because without the desire, there is nothing fueling the change, and therefore no change will take place. The most important thing we can possibly do to heal self-destructive habits is to figure out what's behind them. Self-abuse behavior is usually a form of escapism, so instead take responsibility for your life and your happiness by setting aside some time to work on introspection. Observe your life and ask yourself, what am I running away from? What are the issues I don't feel like I can deal with? What does this behavior accomplish? Your answer should tell you what you need to focus on. It's those things we are covering over with self-destruction that we need to focus on and begin to proactively heal. Next section. The truth about self-pity. Self-pity is the ultimate form of victimhood mentality. It's sabotage in the form of dishonoring yourself, ignoring your own potential, and not recognizing your own power. If you struggle with self-pity, you are not alone. This is one of the most difficult forms of self-sabotage to deal with because the way our society views self-pity is detrimental to those healing from it. The just get over it society we live in sees self-pity as pathetic. Self-pity is seen as a selfish indulgence and is treated like an embarrassment. If you struggle with self-pity, you don't have to feel guilty or beat yourself up about it. It doesn't make you pathetic or a bad person. It just means that you aren't giving yourself the love that you need. You are feeling powerless and incapable. You are viewing yourself as the underdog instead of focusing on your own power and worth, and that focus is keeping you from getting what you want. The next time you notice that you're starting to feel sorry for yourself, allow yourself to admit that you deserve to feel sorry for yourself. Own up to the fact that you are justified in feeling that way. You don't need anyone else to validate this. Admit to yourself that you are where you are, and then find a proactive thing to do that will cause you to come into your power and shift you out of this victim mentality. It will help you to live in line with your highest good. If you're struggling with a situation that makes you feel sorry for yourself, take your power back by asking yourself these questions. 1. How did I make myself a match to this? This does not mean to look for ways to blame yourself for it. It means to look for the power you had in creating it. 2. What am I meant to learn from this? 3. What is the pain causing me to know that I want? What is this pain causing me to know that I want? 4. What positive things have come or could possibly come from this? 5. What can I do to change things for the better right here and now? You always have the power to cause yourself to feel a little better. You are a magnificent being capable of anything you could possibly dream up. No one else can take that from you, because even if they try, no one can truly control your mind. Next section. Stop depriving yourself. Self-deprivation is sabotage in the form of withholding enjoyment from ourselves. This form of sabotage is the direct result of thinking that you don't deserve whatever it is that you want. When we deprive ourselves, we operate from the belief that we don't deserve the best, we don't deserve to get what we want, and we don't deserve happiness and love. If you struggle with self-deprivation, you are confused about the difference between self-love and selfishness. That topic was covered in tool number 17, so please review it so you can be clear on this. It is also important to recognize that self-deprivation is like an addiction. You can become addicted to the feeling of self-worth that you get from feeling like you are a good person when you deprive yourself, just like someone who is addicted to heroin is addicted to the feeling of calm they get when they shoot up. But don't let this feeling fool you. Depriving yourself is ruining your life. It's a poor substitute for self-worth, or for true self-worth. It is an addiction that is killing you, and don't be surprised if you experience some kind of withdrawal and feel guilty when you stop depriving yourself. The withdrawal is worth it. If you remain committed to living without deprivation, eventually you will acclimatize to the change, and it will begin to feel good to demonstrate love to yourself. Next section, don't deny your self-worth. Self-deprecation is the self-sabotage in the form of belittlement where you deny your own worth. When we deprecate ourselves, we undervalue ourselves and hold a less than attitude towards ourselves. We also tend to invalidate anything that draws attention to our worth. If you struggle with self-deprecation, it is important to understand that in many cases, this is just a way of manipulating other people's perceptions of you in order to avoid taking a hit to your self-esteem. The basic strategy behind this avoidance technique is to get an attack in first. In other words, you launch a preemptive attack on your own feelings before anyone else can do it to you. If you have spent your life belittling yourself in front of others, it is most likely because you have noticed that if you attack yourself in front of others, they are no longer inspired to do so, and they may even give you a compliment. In this way, you may be using self-belittlement to get love from others. Until you recognize this pattern and decide that the payoff is not worth the detriment, you will continue to do it. In most cases, if we struggle with self-deprecation, we have spent time as a child around adults who had unreasonably high expectations of us. When we experience failing to live up to their high expectations, we develop the idea that we were not good enough. Our early life experiences of being below standard cause us to feel fundamentally flawed and inadequate. Because of this, we have most likely developed our personality on top of a foundation of shame, living our life with the ever-present fear that we are inadequate. If you may find that you struggle intensely with the idea that you deserve anything. This fear of being seen as inadequate can lead us to chronically procrastinate. Interesting. Procrastination protects us from the higher expectations that may come with succeeding. Okay, that resonates. Procrastination protects us from the higher expectations that may come with succeeding. Okay, we procrastinate not only because we fear failure, but also because it keeps us safe from facing our true limits by avoiding challenges and putting things off. Because we fear being seen as inadequate, we chronically avoid drawing other people's attention, and we try to lower other people's expectation of us, as well as our own expectations of ourselves. We may apologize for things in advance so that when we fail, there's no backlash. We fully believe in and identify with our inadequacy to the extent that we don't believe that there is anything good about ourselves. We can't believe any compliment that we are given. If you are someone who self-deprecates, that's me. It is important to focus on things that cause you to feel proud and good about yourself, and you need to work on your self-esteem if you feel tempted to undermine yourself before you have even begun a project. Take a silent vow to let the results of whatever you are doing speak for themselves. You do not need to talk yourself up, and you certainly shouldn't talk yourself down. Just stay quiet and let the results unfold. And most important, engage in any activity that causes you to improve your opinion about yourself. Next section. Next section, pride goes before a fall. The 8th form of self-sabotage I want to mention is self-pride, which often hides under the mask of narcissism. It is the belief that you are better than other people. Contrary to popular belief, pride and narcissism are not forms of self-love. They are actually quite the opposite. We develop pride when we feel deeply insecure about ourselves, as a way to overcompensate for how terrible we actually feel about ourselves. This overcompensation becomes a form of self-sabotage because not only does pride silence the voice of the truth that we are scared, lonely, and insecure, but it also drives people away from us. Pride does not bring us love, attention, and adoration, but rather it causes others to reject us, leading us to feel abandoned. If you struggle with self-pride, also known as arrogance, vanity, or narcissism, it is important to understand where this behavior comes from. Just like self-deprecation, self-pride is also a way of manipulating other people's perceptions of you in order to avoid taking a hit to your self-esteem. The basic strategy behind this avoidance technique is to divert people's attention away from your insecurities and weaknesses by going on about your specialness and perfection. The only way you can find to avoid feeling worthless is to coat your insecurity with a heavy coat of varnish, and the varnish you use is called boasting. In most cases, those of us who suffer from self-pride have experienced direct criticism and disapproval from significant people in our childhood, usually our parents. Most of us who suffer from self-pride have discovered early on in our lives that the rewards and punishments that are given out by adults are the direct result of how those adults perceive us. Because of this, we seek to manipulate the adults around us and eventually everyone around us to perceive us as perfect or amazing. We think this will bring us more love, and we may even put other people down in order to compete for what limited positive attention there might be. Self-pride doesn't always come across in an overt way. For example, someone who struggles with self-pride may mask their pride with a compliment such as, "I'm so sick of people writing me all these love letters. At some point, enough is enough." These covert statements are meant to make it seem as if we are not bragging and that we might even potentially be humble, but the statement is really intended to cause the other person to come to the conclusion that we are amazing and special. If you struggle with self-pride, the most important thing to do is shine a light on your actual insecurities. Ask yourself, what am I so afraid of? Be honest with yourself and know who you truly are. We can't really love ourselves if we love only what is perfect about ourselves, so we must learn to embrace what is imperfect. Other people actually like us better when we are open enough to admit to our imperfections. Plus, it's exhausting to have to keep up a facade all day, every day. Next section, caring what other people think. Everyone has negative thoughts about themselves, other people from time to time. So when you are worried about someone else's opinion, remember that they are also worrying about what someone else thinks of them. They may even be worrying about what you think of them. Besides, it's not the end of the world to have someone think negative about you. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if someone thinks a bad thought about me? The answer to this question will show you what needs to be healed if you want to stop caring what other people think of you. Caring what other people think is a very common problem. It is a problem that always stems from the need to be loved and accepted. So if you want to let go of caring what other people think, and especially let go of self-pride, simply take incremental steps toward loving and accepting yourself. When we set out to love ourselves, there inevitably comes a time when we must commit to living our life in line with our highest good. Inevitably, the time will come to let go of our self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors, and that time is now. It may not happen overnight, and you don't have to do it all at once. But if you begin to take incremental steps toward replacing self-sabotaging behaviors with self-supporting daily actions, you will get to the point where you no longer sabotage yourself. You may be afraid, but you are ready for this change. You are ready to make choices that serve your highest good. You are ready to love yourself. And that does it for tool number 25. Quite a long one. There's a lot to digest in here for sure. I don't want to go into too much of a lengthy recap here. I'll just say that for sure, I believe the self-deprecation one was totally me, all the way. That one was pretty heavily me. At the very least, half of what she mentioned was spot on for me, especially when it comes to procrastination. That one stuck out a lot to a certain extent. It's definitely an issue I deal with, and it's not. I wouldn't really say that it's out of fear, but yeah, we'll definitely have to go back and read this one again to myself, because this was quite lengthy and there's a lot to digest in here. But I feel like this is one of the best tools for sure. This is one of the best chapters in this book for sure. So I mean, if you guys ever read this yourself, or you ever want to go back and watch some of these, this is the one I think that definitely deserves a lot of reflection for sure. There's a lot in here. I feel like there's a lot people can take from it. I believe there are 3 chapters left, and then we are done. 2 or 3 chapters left, and that includes the one that's up next here, to number 26. So as you can see, I'm sort of slowly pacing myself out. It's been a little bit too long since the last part. I wasn't really expecting it to be this long, but I'll have to number 26 up for sure this upcoming week, so stay tuned for that one. Thanks for watching as usual, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if you did. Hopefully the audio turned out okay. I didn't monitor it this time around, so if that popping occurs, I do apologize, or if it occurred, I do apologize. Yeah, I'll have to wear my headphones for the next one and future readings, but I didn't this time around because I'm actually supposed to be keeping an ear out for the door. So that's gonna do it for this reading. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.